Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. Very excited to be in the studio today with Robin Reed and Eric Sperling. We have Robin Reed, who is the co-founder and principal with Influent LLC, and Eric, managing director with STN. Welcome, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
You came as a pair.
Yes, we did.
I'm excited.
We do that a lot.
I love that. Well, let's really just jump in and talk about how you landed here today. I know that Kendra Maples with Culture Crush podcast was our great introduction. And I believe that she and Daryl, our producer, just recently went and watched a live episode of over at STN. And Robin, you've been on with us before. We're trying to remember which episode it was, but I think it was Arizona Technology Council.
Probably was.
Yeah,
yes.
with Steve Zalstra and I. So let's start with having each of you introduce yourselves. Tell us about your role with the organization that you're representing today. And then, of course, we'll get in the backstory. I know we have a lot of ground to cover, so it'll be a fun conversation. Yep,
Sure.
Eric's pointing at you.
Yep, I'll go first. Robin Reed, co-founder and principal with Influent. We are a corporate consulting firm. So we do everything from executive coaching to leadership development to workforce optimization. Ultimately, we layer, between my wife and I, my business partner, we layer about 60 years worth of experience on top of behavioral and cognitive analytics to help people bring their best self to their workplace.
Excellent. I didn't realize your wife was your partner. What is her first name?
Shauna.
Shauna. Great. Good to know. And Predictive Index, I think, is one of the tools that you use.
It's one of the technology platforms. The other one is called Line of Sight. So our company is actually one of 10 on the planet right now that can use both of those together, and they were intended to work together.
Are you comfortable speaking to what each of them offer?
Absolutely. So Line of Sight is really the segment of our business that I operate, and it focuses on strategic alignment. So we use analytics to basically assess the executive team to make sure that they're all rowing in the same direction at the same pace for the same length of time. Because we learned that the phrase rowing in the same direction doesn't mean anything if somebody stops earlier or doesn't row at the same pace, you're still off course. So we use that portion of it. Now, once we've got a company aligned with their strategy, we can use the behavioral traits of the staff and align them literally graphically on a screen with the company strategy and show you where someone fits and why their difference may be an asset to your organization and not a detriment.
Okay, great intro. Thank you.
Hi.
So top that.
I'm Eric Sperling. I am the managing director, founder at STN. We are an independent media company. We've been around about 10 years now. Last 4 years is when we really started to grow here in the Valley because we launched our streaming network. And our mission is to create a better local media experience. You and I have talked before. We have similar missions. I think we all know there's a gap in local media, a big one. And so our team at STN aims to fill that gap. We're not looking to replace local television or local news. We found an avenue where leaders like Robin and Monica with the Hispanic Chamber and others in the Valley, those stories needed to be told and their vision needed another platform. And so STN rallies leaders together. We have a streaming network that's available on the App Store or Google Play. You can download it there. All the content is also available on our website, but you'll quickly notice when you're there that every piece of content focuses on either local leadership, community growth, or actionable solutions. And then our goal is to really nail the model here in Arizona and then expand to other local markets like we had in local TV, where every market had an affiliate. You'd have an NBC in LA and San Diego. We want an STN in Arizona and LA and San Diego, following in the footsteps of what we created here.
The traditional networks have changed, haven't they? Quite a bit when it comes to some of the local programming, from what I've heard, and maybe I'm wrong, so correct me.
Yes and no. One of our director of production, Jody Isaac, and I, we have a joke that when we were still in local news, we'd pop in a tape from 1985 and the content hadn't changed. It was shooting, random house fire, weather, another random story, and it was the same format. And so I think if you watch local news today, you'll see while they've tried to evolve a little bit in their delivery methods, much of what dictates the content is if it bleeds, it leads, that
Right.
philosophy. And unfortunately, they just can't get away from that philosophy because of the way they use it to attract viewers and monetize the actual programming. So again, there's definitely a place for that in local communities, but I think the need for an STN, for a Business Radio X, is what viewers, listeners are now demanding from media professionals.
Mhm.
You know, I would add to that, and I happen to serve on an advisory board to one of the 3 top news affiliates, and they follow the news. You know, one of the things that I always have a challenge with is that I can turn on one of 3 news stations between the 6 o'clock and 7:30 hour, and I can just catch one story. It's being told the same way on all three networks, but they follow the story. They follow kind of the national rhetoric around a topic, where what STN is doing is leading the story. We're finding what's good about things that are happening in the world, and we're highlighting it. You know, when Eric and I first start talking about the community collaborative, which now has truly grown into It Happens at STN, the goal was to talk about the good things that are happening on the topics that we're already challenged with. Because yes, we know, you know, individuals experiencing homelessness is a big issue, but there's a lot of good things happening. Sustainability is a challenge, but there's a lot of good things happening. DEI, certainly a hot button topic, but there are a lot of good things happening, and no one was telling that story. And we knew that story needed to be told. So we really kind of adopted this belief system of, we're not looking for someone to do everything. We're looking for everyone to do something. And so we're really highlighting, big and small, the efforts that are being taken in a lot of our hot button topics.
So how did the 2 of you connect originally?
So through Robin's work at the Black Chamber, we were just starting the initial topics and segments around local leadership. And was it you that introduced Monica to me, or did Monica introduce
No,
you?
so no, Jenny Poon
Okay.
at
Yay.
Cahoots introduced you to me, or
Okay.
me to
Good.
you.
And it's one of those things where, and Robin, as he's admitted before, he's a high functioning introvert. So I think right when he showed up at the studio, we wanted to do, similar to this. It was called our Arizona Achievers segment. It's about a 15-20 minute interview with local leaders that are creating change in our community. And you have those magic moments where, you sit down with somebody and the introvert in me came out and the introvert in him, and we just bonded and immediately started talking about less about the studio and the segments, but more about problem solving as a whole, and where our influences can potentially collaborate and combine. And before you know it, we're off and running on, okay, I'll email you tomorrow. Let me call you tomorrow. And we just started building and growing together. And it was something that, when it wasn't intentional, but I think once we met each other, we've just found those synergies and we were able to feed off each other. And as he said, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've interviewed over 100 local leaders in the DEI space,
So
companies ranging from, Southwest to Sephora to all of our local ones here as well. But really learning where those gaps are and then how we can be influential in helping those companies solve some of those challenges and situations.
Well, I'll tell you something that I found. This is really important to me because it shows how what we've done has really matured. When we first started, our biggest challenge was getting guests on the show.
Mm-hmm.
They were so preconditioned to believe that if they were being brought on to talk about a difficult topic, it was a trap. And we really just drilled into them. No, this show is about positives. We talk about negative topics, but in a positive, forward moving way. And so we went from not getting anyone to be able to come on to creating a waiting list for people to
Mhm.
come on asking, to, in our very last episode, we had the governor of Arizona
I know.
on our show. To me, that
Mhm.
is such a testament to Eric, to the STN network, and to the incredible staff of people. I mean, unbelievable staff of people. They have become more than friends, they're family. But I've never seen a group of people so cohesive in the delivery of excellence in the work they do. It is a joy to go there every time.
Gr- I heard that particular episode was fantastic. My team got to be there, which we're so appreciative of. Kind of describe for our listeners and viewers, obviously this is set up like a radio studio and we kind of casually record it via video as well for LinkedIn and YouTube. Yours is more of a, I'm going to use the word TV production studio with always a live audience?
So we didn't have a live audience for the first 3 years. Obviously, we were trying to do this during the pandemic with the intention of hopefully one day creating that live audience experience. So yes, it is. And Robin alluded to the team. A lot of us are former local TV people and they are superstars. They're former local TV superstars. And we were talking about that. If it bleeds, it leads philosophy for a while. There are so many talented people in local newsrooms, and a lot of talented people sometimes got into it thinking, okay, you're into it 2 or 3 years. You're like, this isn't really why I got into this business. Like, how do I use my talents, my skills, my passion in a different way? And so STN has sort of become that home for extremely talented local journalists, broadcast professionals. So it is built like a TV studio. It's better than some of the initial TV studios that I ever worked at coming up through my career. So that's exciting to see when you walk in, you go, wow, we built this. But then adding the live studio audience component just was a game changer for us because we were able to be intentional about who we wanted in the audience. And we've been talking about this. Sure, there are some competitive dynamics with the organizations that, but to bring them together, you go from competitive dynamics to collaborative solutions. And I'll use, Amy and Jackson as examples. Amy is the CEO at Human Services Campus, and Jackson Fonder is the CEO over at UMOM. They both compete for funding. They both compete in different levels and different arenas for sponsorships. But here they are coming together on one stage in one community. And now they're bringing the fight against homelessness to a much bigger audience. And they're showing that they can rally together, and they're not, we always say operating in silos, but they're not operating in a silo anymore. And so being intentional with that studio audience saying, hey, if you're part of this coalition of the willing to come and join the fight against homelessness or help us put DEI into more of our businesses and nonprofits, we want you in the audience because we know you're going to have that representation to go back on Monday or Tuesday and say, okay, what do I tell my 10,000 employees? How do we incorporate this into our plans? And that's what the magic, I think, of the studio audience has brought.
And then you're also a leader who can make decisions, have decision-making power, and also be bold enough, I think, in your leadership that at the end of a segment, I'm guessing, because I've never been there, but can walk up to someone like you or the governor and introduce yourself and make that magic happen and that collaboration happen.
We see it all the time.
Yeah, I can tell you, number one, and I hope no one from the fire department is listening, but we get to standing room only in this show. I mean, we have people packed in, but I've started to watch and notice that people are having these wonderful, authentic, organic conversations with people that they couldn't get on the phone if they tried. But when you come into this studio, the environment is so welcoming that there is no status in there. Everybody is a wonderful equal. And we have these thorough conversations where people will tell me, oh, I met so-and-so and we're going to work together. Or I can't believe this person was here. I had a great conversation. They're really nice. Like, most people are really nice. You just don't know it because you only see them through that professional lens. But it's become a great place, just to give you some idea. And we are on hiatus through the summer. But to give you some idea, we actually invite people there at 3 p.m. From 3 to 4. It's networking. We have food, we have beverage, we have a DJ, and it is packed. And it is a blast. At 4 o'clock, we start recording. We record several segments of each of the shows, and then that's from 4 to 5. And then from 5 to 6, I won't tell them the secret part afterwards, but from 5 to 6, people kind of network on their way out the door. So it's a 3-hour investment of time. It goes by in the blink of an eye. And not only do people always come back, but they always bring someone the next time. So good.
And it's invitation only, the audience, as well as, of course, the panel.
Correct.
Yeah. And how do you come up with the ideas for the segment? I would imagine, now that you've been doing this for so long, I know with us, where it's like, oh, you just mentioned 4 or 5 different organizations and or leaders that are an active part of a solution. We want to then build a show around that. Is that kind of how it works for you as well?
And the show is funded and grown by our partners. So we have many community partners, and I mentioned like a Jackson and an Amy at UMOM and Human Services Campus. We have business partners as well who are dedicated and aligned with these missions. I think Robin and I talk about this all the time. We're not going to let anybody just slap their name on something because they want to be associated with some corporate social responsibility effort. So there's a process, and we will interview potential sponsors, potential partners, find out really what their impact in the community is and see if there's alignment. And so that helps us dictate what some of the content is going to be. And then each and every month we will have multiple pre-production meetings with our show's producing partners like Robin and Monica for talking about DEI, Amy and Jackson for talking about homeless and housing, Lloyd and Stephanie on the mentorship thing, so that it's the community leaders who are on the ground trying to solve these issues that are now coming to us and reporting, okay, here's what's going on in the community, here's what I think our next topics should be, and who can we involve that can, at least, as you said, we can put out a call to action, and we know the audience is somebody that has the influence to create that.
They're well positioned for that.
Well positioned.
And they want to. I think that's the other piece that we talked even before air.
Right.
We are collectively seeing, the three of us anyway, in the work that we're doing, more and more people are saying, and you said it to me for going on air, how can I help you?
Yep.
What do I need to do? Yeah, right. That's
Yep, exactly.
Always leading with that. I love it. Let me see if I have any other questions around the studio piece of it. If one of our listeners or viewers are already curious, which I'm sure they are, and if they haven't already Googled STN, how would you suggest that they learn more information? Where do they find you? And then what is the step if they either want to become a panelist or have their own show, be a sponsor? What does it look like for them?
I think like most, or right, our website's usually the first place to go.
Okay.
There's an email address on there, info if at stntv.com. If you're interested in attending a show, just let us know who you are and where your alignment would be. Again, we're looking in the spaces of DEI, homeless and housing, mentorship and belonging, sustainability. So if you're interested in making a difference in one of those areas, absolutely, that's first step, is come to a show. And then if you just want a private studio tour, you're interested in becoming, we have some limited space available for season 2 partnership. So if you're interested in becoming a partner, that's also another avenue for you as well.
I can't wait to come check it out.
Yeah, you got to come.
So I don't know if you gave the website, but it's stntv.com.
Great.
I encourage you to look back at our early episodes.
No, don't look
And
back.
see the difference. How fun is that?
Well,
To
just
the
see
difference?
how we've grown, because we never slowed down. We did this all through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we've touched on really challenging topics, and it's been a lot of fun. And I know Eric won't say this, but he's also a full service production studio. So if you run organizations, and you don't know, or you don't have the facility, or you don't know how to produce something, I'm telling you, I'll say it again, but his staff is top notch.
They produce incredible work. So yeah, in addition to all of the stuff that you see on stntv.com and the app, we work with a lot of business and nonprofits to help them with their storytelling content. And so our team will go out and help create some of those stories that you'll either see at, galas or on their website or on their social media. There usually has to be some alignment with community growth. I think that's where we really leverage our experience in the community, is making sure we can help tell those stories. We're not like a typical production company, where we're going to sit down with a script or a sheet that you provided, and we want to help you tell that story.
Yeah, we don't do that either.
Yeah.
I would be in big trouble if someone had me a script and they needed me to say it word for word. I would be in big trouble.
Not
I'd
our
stare
style.
at the camera and just, are you originally from the Bay Area, or you were assigned there?
So I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm originally
Where?
from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I grew up in San Jose, California. That's where I went to high school.
San Mateo for me.
Okay.
Grew up in Belmont Heights.
I played junior college football at West Valley College. We had one game in San Mateo, and it did not go well for us.
Hooray for us.
And I'm originally from Oakland and worked in Daly City. Spent many, many years doing business in and around San Mateo. So we are all from the Bay.
And you've been here how long?
24 years.
Yeah, I was here since 79. So technically I grew up in the Bay Area, but then my dad moved us out here before I started high school.
So if someone asks you, where's your hometown, what do you say?
Born in San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And then grew up in and raised my own kids here in Arizona.
Okay.
East Valley
That works.
specifically.
Well
yeah.
said.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Tempe, actually.
Yeah.
I'm a McClintock High grad. So there we go. Good. Yeah. I had seen that on your bio, and I was curious as to kind of where you cut your TV chops.
And I think we bonded over that. I think, and Robin always alludes to this, like, different parts of the country have different challenges, and being from the Bay Area, I think it's such a diverse community, and so many great things are happening, and they also face so many different challenges. But to go from like a Bay Area to Arizona, that's a big shift.
Yeah.
And see, and look right, like exactly. We talk about this, like that's a major shift in, the way certain businesses are run, the way people approach community. And so I think what I love is, and I think this stat is out there, over 70% of adults are not from Phoenix. So
70%.
I don't, I
That's right.
could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I
I
think
think
that's
I
right.
either saw that or heard that somewhere. But that gives us an opportunity, I think, to take these lived experiences and say, okay, we can bring a little bit about what either worked in the Bay Area or this community, that community, and apply that to what's going on here in Arizona.
With a lot of the leaders that I've had an opportunity to connect with here at the studio for the last 6 years, I think some of that that we have come into the state of Arizona, not necessarily been born and raised, people had lent that to us not knowing who we are as a business community. Like, what do we hang our hat on?
Mhm.
And again, early days of the studio 6 years ago, that was one of those questions that a lot of our hosts would ask their guests. So, what do you think Arizona should be known for? I've seen that shift now, that it's still, or more loudly, is around collaboration. It's more loudly around being inclusive. It's also around being creative and innovative. What do you guys see when
It's a
you're
good
having these
question.
conversations?
I agree. Number one, that it's around collaboration. I think that I think the world in general is shifting away from everything being competitive. When you truly are living in an abundance mindset, you understand you don't have to compete with anyone for anything. There's plenty
Mhm.
available for everyone. So I think that we can be recognized for being a very collaborative state. And I've had this conversation with Mayor Gallego. I've had this conversation with Governor Hobbs. I had the same conversation with our previous governor, Ducey. We have an opportunity to also be the blueprint for how you build a fast growing metro area. No other state or metro area is growing the way we are. We are increasing our diversity, and we can use that to become the model for how you grow a state that will create legacies for all of these elected officials and will leave a lasting impact on Arizona that you won't be able to tear down. So that's what I hope we're working towards.
I've never heard it articulated like that before. I love hearing that. It's very synonymous with what I again hear our guests and hosts talk about, and it is this collaboration and this connectedness between our legislatures, our government officials, higher education, our big enterprise leaders, small mom and pop shops. Would you agree? I mean, it really is this big, beautiful melting pot.
Yeah, I was gonna that was fantastic.
Yeah,
as well.
I know.
Were we recording that?
I was just going to say, hopefully we got that down.
That was-
That's the idea.
Well, and I do want to credit, we have so many wonderful elected officials. So I mentioned a few, but Scottsdale Mayor, Tempe Mayor, all of the economic development departments in the Valley, they're really embracing this in the work they're doing every day. So that's why I feel so optimistic that we can become that blueprint.
I love it. Yeah, I hear organizations say that frequently about their own businesses and entities and wanting to take them out to other states and other areas of Arizona. Why not be a model as a state for other places? So that's great. Let's talk a little bit about workforce development as an executive leader and coach, consultant, all of the above, and then the work that you're doing, Eric. Do you consult as well in that space, or do you really stay and play in the area that we've already described as it relates to
just
STN?
when you grow a team and you lead a team, that's just naturally
is.
going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'd be more than open. I'd love to hear Robin's thoughts, but contribute to that conversation.
And jump in when it comes to workforce development too, because
Absolutely.
clearly you and I have had, I'm sure, experiences
Yes.
when watching this shift and change. What would you say is happening with workforce development, and where are we headed?
Well, I'm excited about where we're headed, and where I believe we're headed is a place where there's a little more balance between the employer and the employee. I think that we were in a prior to the pandemic, we were in a place where the employer held all the cards, and only the ones that dealt them out equitably succeeded. What happened was the pandemic hit, and employees had leverage because as we saw throughout the pandemic, businesses weren't losing in productivity or revenue. So it killed the argument of you need to come in and sit at that desk for this many hours in order to justify your contribution to this organization. And when employees realized that, their voice came out. Why do I need to be in the office? And we've worked with companies where the boss has said straight up, you know what, I'm just more comfortable with that. And I challenge him as a consultant to say, is your comfort more important than revenue and profits and employee happiness? Because you're going to lose the employee. So will you be more comfortable with an understaffed organization? But I think where we're moving to is this wonderful place of balance where there will be some that are fully remote, some that are hybrid, and some that work in the office. But in the work that we do, we kind of show you which of those employees through their behavioral traits are going to fit best in each of those situations.
That has to be eye-opening for your leaders.
It's interesting because when we show a leader and that employee their behavioral profile, we have so many leaders say, oh,
Now
I get it.
Right now I
I
understand.
get it. This person receives information this way. I was talking to them the way I receive information, which is what most of us do, right? When you think of it as a language, I speak in the language that I think everyone understands because it's the language I speak, but it may not be the language everyone understands best. Our name Enfluent came from employee-employer fluency. We help with the conversation so that you understand each other better, because when you're communicating with someone in a way that they are receiving information, you get far more engagement, quite a bit more discretionary effort. Imagine that if I'm someone, for me, for example, I'm 30,000 foot view. Give me verbs and nouns, give me the bullet points. If I have questions, I'll ask. If you get too far into the details before I know what you're talking about, I check out on you. My wife, my business partner, her communication style is the opposite. The details matter to her. She really embraces the detail. They give her a feel for what the conversation is about, and that's how she gets engaged. So you can imagine when she and I talk, sometimes we have to remind each other. So for her, she'll say, I need more detail. And for me, I say verbs and nouns. and it frustrates her, but we found that we communicate far better when we understand that about each other. Now take that into an organization that has 100 employees and understand that that manager you don't like, you don't really dislike them. They're just not communicating with you in a way that you resonate with, or you're not communicating with them in a way that resonates with them. And so we bundle that together and call it conflict when it isn't. It's just miscommunication.
How long do you work with organizations, or does that vary?
Varies on the organization and the scope of work they want. We have clients that we've worked with for 2 years because their goal is bigger. We have others that have kind of taken the work we do piecemeal. So they start in one area, and when that works, they go to the next. And when that works, they go to the next. We've come into organizations where all we do is coach the executives and we leave. We've done weekend, board development seminars and never talk to them again. Although interestingly, they call us and just say, just so you know, we're still using what you taught us and it works.
So good. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of different entry points depending on where the demand is.
Absolutely.
And like I asked Eric, how do people find out about you, and what's the best place to, is it a discovery call? How can an executive director or leader come and say, hey, we think you might be a good fit for us?
Absolutely. So our website is emfluent.com, EMFLUENT. But I want to be clear, when we started our company, my wife and I agreed we wanted to work with mission-driven organizations. That doesn't mean you can't be excited about generating high revenue and high profits. But if the only purpose of your organization is to make money, you're probably not going to connect well with what we do. If you don't believe that the people inside your organization are the key to your success, the work we do will not hit home for you. Mm-hmm. So we really make sure that at the time they engage us, they are a people-centric organization.
Which is, again, goes back to STN.
And I want to say, and Robin's wife, Shauna, is brilliant too. And when you spend 10 to 15 minutes, we're talking about discovery or whatever the process is with Robin and Enfluent, The level of you said detail, but the level of detail you are able to extract from somebody in the first 10 to 15 minutes is incredible. And you get this feeling of, okay, this isn't enough time. I want to spend 4 more hours with him.
It's
Because
probably a good gauge for this would be a great partnership.
exactly.
Yeah.
His ability to not, he's not one of those guys who's going to come in and talk about himself and his organization. He's just going to get right down to your needs, your goals, and telling you within 15 minutes, you're blown away and you want more. And with both of them, Robin and Shauna.
What's next for you I'm going to use the term Arizona leadership. We mentioned the Black Chamber. You're involved with STN. You're having these conversations. You've got your own practice. When you look ahead for even 2024,
I think big. The change I want to make, I need it to be lasting change. I want to see Arizona become that blueprint as we talk about things like DEI. Equally important, I want to see STN and our show become regional and then national. I want it to become the blueprint for how you heal cities, how you bring people together, how you get them to connect to something bigger than the last episode of Fox or CNN.
right?
I guarantee that in our audience, we have all sides of the political spectrum, and none of that comes up in our show because our show isn't intended to have that volatility to it. It isn't to be opinionated about an elected official or anything. It's about how are we going to use all of our brain power to solve a challenge facing our entire area. So for me, for 2024, I want to see that it happens at STN becomes extremely well funded so we can take this work and really expand upon it. We're doing something different, better, and very powerful.
And beautiful.
And it's incredibly important that this not only continue, but that it grow.
It's an incredible vehicle is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you mentioned that it's non-political, and yet I'm sure you're intentional about bringing people into the audience that might represent kind of different sides.
Absolutely.
How refreshing is that when social media in particular, and maybe the news that we're choosing to listen to, right? When we tell Google or LinkedIn and Facebook or whatever it is, what we want, we're going to keep getting more and more of that, right? So then we end up in that silo that contributes to the silo, because
Absolutely.
the more I say what I like and want, the more it's going to feed me just that. And then either one of you, if you're listening to a different side of things, of course, that's all you're being fed. And then we sit down over a coffee out in the backyard, or we meet each other by the water cooler at work, and we're not having those connections anymore, and we're disagreeing, and we don't even know why. We don't even understand anymore. So it's great that you're doing what you're doing and the way in which you're doing it.
It's probably one of the things I was saying this to Eric. So as we filmed our last episode of the season, I pulled Eric aside and I said, there are fewer things in my life that I am as proud of as my contribution. And I told him my gauge of when I do things is, would my mother be proud of this? And my mother would be so proud of the work product that comes out of this show. She'd be proud of the fact that I aligned with people that allowed me to participate and contribute to something like this. That to me says it all. That's when I know I'm doing the right thing. And
then you can lay your head down on the pillow at night, and
if I weren't an insomniac,
right? Oh, is that going on too?
Since I was 10 years old.
Oh gosh! And for you, what is it for you when you've had a good day? When?
Oh man, good question. They're all good days. And you talked about some of the work that you do too. And I think it's important for everyone when you get to this point of either leadership or in your professional or personal life that you don't have bad days. Like, yes, you have bad moments, you have bad hours, but at some point you have the tools, the internal emotional tools to to at the end of the day say, man, I had a good day. And we are all going to experience tragedy. We're all going to experience trauma. Bad things are going to happen. But if you carry that with you, who does that help? And so I think for me, every day is a good day. Where I struggle with is, what Robin just said, is sometimes when you're in it, you need a Robin to pull you out and say, look around, look at what's happening, because you're always so focused on achieving and striving and getting to the next phase. You don't sit there and just go, okay, wow, this is something incredible that we've all done together and how far we've come. And I've told this, like, STN, we built it from nothing. It didn't exist. It was one camera and one microphone. And, I thanked the last episode, Rachel Andrews, our director of operations, Jody Isaac, our director of production. And, they built the thing brick by brick. And another thing that Robin knows about me is I'm a Motown nut. Berry Gordy is my idol. The way that Motown was built and the business that it was, and then the social impact it had, I think it's the greatest story of entrepreneurship out there. But you're talking about developing and growing a business, and we were talking about this earlier in this segment, is they built Motown not around the person, not the structure. They didn't, and we did that at STN. Like, we didn't have, all right, we have a director of production opening, Jody, come join it, and this is your role. No, we used his skill set and built a department around him. Same with Rachel. We used her skill set and we built around that, not saying you're going to do this and this is how we're going to grow. And I think that's kind of the magic behind STN, is being able to find all of these talented people and not put them into a certain box, but instead leverage their skills and their passion to help us all grow. And then, what makes you, good days is just watching all of them thrive. When you grow and you build a team, and man, they have some good days, they have some bad days, but to see what they've been able to do and produce, those are great days.
And you mentioned the second season that will begin in September.
Yes.
Okay. And you have a little bit of room left for a couple additional shows. So you and Monica both co-host. Am I understanding this right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. The kind of DEI
portion of
it. And then you mentioned a couple other hosts for other portions of it. Is there a specific area you're looking for, or could someone come to you with an idea and say, this is what we're thinking? Does it resonate?
So we have a few slots open in each one of those segments. So DEI, and what we're seeing is heavy interest from, as Robin said, the financial industry in our community. In homeless and housing, it's usually the ones that are doing the work in that space. And then mentorship, we have so many great mentorship organizations here in the Valley. We have Boys and Girls Club, New Pathways for Youth, Girl Scouts, all of them coming together. So if you're in one of those spaces, I think that is what, and you're looking for that way to, okay, I either want to elevate my organization, or I really think we can be a key component to transforming our mission, using the community as a whole. Like, boy, wouldn't it be great to partner with Girl Scouts and New Pathways if you haven't already yet? And that's what we provide, is sort of that cohesive point for them.
The melting pot.
Yes.
Yes. Good.
Again, removing the competitive dynamics and instead saying, you guys are all focused on the same community issue. How do we collaborate on solutions? And they do that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm curious about segments on education.
Mhm.
I mean, that mentorship in a sense, right? But K-12 really, especially here in Arizona. I think sometimes we have a little arm limping along when it comes to education, said the former educator and assistant principal. So yes, I'm looking forward to plugging in. So
Lloyd Hopkins, $1 Million Teacher Project, and then Stephanie Parr at All in Education.
Okay.
They are the producing partners of In the Room. And exactly what you were just talking about. There are so many things that, yes, need to be done at the policy level, but there are also some things we can accomplish at the community and business level that Lloyd and Stephanie have really rallied the community to say, hey, here's what we need to advance here. We realize this might not be something we can change systems wise right now, but urgently we need it. So I think it's great to have that mix of leaders where you can really look at something like education, say, what can we solve right now? And then what do we need to be working on big picture?
What have I not thought to ask either of you that you want to make sure our viewers and listeners are aware of about your organizations and you as professionals?
I think before I answer that, I'll tell you a little bit more about the show and why what we do is important. The supporters of our show and the guests on our show, our intention from the beginning was to show that organizations have a soul. They are more than what they do or what they sell. APS, I believe, was one of the first ones on. Cox Communications, phenomenal organization, was one of the first ones on. And we wanted people to understand that's more than just the company that makes your television come on or the lights come on. They're human beings inside these organizations, and it's the culture they build inside that you never see. You think APS is just a company that makes the lights come on and then they send you a bill. But inside that organization, they're incredible human beings. We had PetSmart on 2 episodes ago. If you ever get a chance to go by their headquarters, you'll feel it the minute you open the door. I mean, beyond the fact that every employee gets to bring their pet to work, but they have a culture that is so strong that it dictates how the executives lead the organization. If you don't adopt and adapt to a very strong, positive culture, you won't fit in the executive team at PetSmart. And they've proven this over and over. So we want people to see this so that when you're making that choice as a customer of where to spend your dollar, we want you to have a little bit, another arrow in your quiver as to this is why you choose this company versus that one. That wasn't the original intention. I'll tell you just this really quick example, but I went into a PetSmart. I have 2 wonderful dogs. I went into a PetSmart, and the young man at the register he was tattooed from his fingertips to his forehead. And we've all been in that company where somebody had bandages over tattoos because the company wouldn't allow it. And I said, do they care? Does the company care? He goes, oh God, no. They care if we're good to animals. They care if we're good to each other. They care if we're good to our customers. If those 3 are happening, what we look like when we're doing it is irrelevant to them. Well, more importantly, that's a powerful statement in of itself. But when the company culture has driven all the way down to the frontline worker that's customer facing, you've done it right. That's how it should be. The values of your organization should be visible everywhere in the organization
and comfortably articulated, as this
Absolutely.
individual did back for you. Like
Absolutely.
really just no, of course they don't care. And here's why. Here's what I'm focused on doing.
Exactly.
Perfect. Great example. I serve on the Treasures for Teachers board and have for, oh gosh, I think it's almost 8 years. And we just recently started having our meetings at SRP, and we're very fortunate to have a representative both from SRP and APS that serve on the board. And boy, are they givers. I mean, when we're looking for a truck or we have a need or anything, those leaders then go back to their team, and the whole team rallies around what they're doing to help Treasures for Teachers. And they are so invested in the community. It's phenomenal. And we've interviewed PetSmart a handful of times. I think we're very fortunate, again, to all of our points throughout our segment, that we are here in Arizona working with organizations who are making a difference because they care about our community. They care about their employees, all of the stakeholders, and we want to see people do better. And when we do better for each other, then obviously other people can do better for whoever they're in front of. Yeah. How about you? Anything else that I haven't thought to ask?
I mean, now that we're talking about, the advantages of having great leaders inside an organization like PetSmart or APS or SRP, in my background in news, we never had anything like company culture. We never had mission statements, which, now that I've been out of local news for over 10 years, like that's mind blowing to me that we didn't adopt any of these things that are creating conscious businesses for our, in our own newsrooms. And now that I'm out, you can really see the power of, man, that's how many employees is that for PetSmart? That's 60 some thousand employees. And if, Robin and myself and you, we can have some of these conversations and realize how many people that's going to impact when we take some of these, what we've talked about, and they go back to their organizations. Like, that's a massive ripple effect. And so I love the ability to, this is Business Radio X. I didn't understand, and maybe I was a little naive to it, the influence that businesses have, not just on revenue in our community, but all of the social implications of educating some of these leaders and getting to their teams and just watching that wave of impact, knowing, okay, we get the top, we're gonna get 50, 60,000 people, and they're gonna talk to their families, they're gonna talk to their communities. So just the power of talking to the business community, I think, was something I was so naive to coming into it, and then realizing the opportunity that we all have, that businesses have.
And through the stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they've got to be authentic stories that resonate. Yeah.
And I think they just do, because they're real and they're authentic, and people, it makes a difference for
Stories
people.
give you the buy-in. Like,
Of
you can have
course.
the greatest strategy out there, but if you don't have the buy-in, it's not going to do anything. Stories allow you to get the buy-in.
Mhm. Wow. I thought of one other question for you, if I may. Talk to me, or talk to us about how often you find yourself helping teams develop stronger, not only communication, but also for their own personal and professional development. Is that kind of weaved together?
Absolutely. So in the work that we do, the first thing that happens is we do a behavioral assessment. My wife Shauna will then give you a very detailed readback. We had one gentleman say, "This is witchcraft. You couldn't know me that well." But again, the science is proven. We also have a lot of people say, "Hey, can I do this with my spouse?" It wasn't intended as a tool to help marriages, but it works as one. I know, because we use it. We use it to understand each other's communication style. But as it relates to teams, if you have an organization where everything's weighted in one direction, and the picture I draw is, if you're really sales driven as an organization, well, then salespeople are their own unique breed, and we call them the balloon, right? They just want to go flying away. Well, you still need a string to hold the balloon down, and you need a rock to tie the string around. You need that in every organization, and we show you who those people are within the organization, and we then explain to you why it's so important for you to appreciate that person is your offset. So if you have a sales organization, but they're very weak on operations, and they're very weak on process and procedure, then what you have is a lot of sales with invoices that don't come back to the office, so the accounting department can do the books, right? So we show you how to put all of those together and how to value each person. Additionally, and I'll tell you this story, because this is probably one of my favorite in terms of how what we do helps. I am extremely fortunate to serve on the board of directors for Treasure House, which is an organization that provides independent living opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disorders. It's Kurt and Brenda Warner's nonprofit. They were having a devil of a time finding a chef. They could hire him easily. It's a cognitive skill. If you know how to cook and you're qualified, you're a chef. But the turnover was significant. They used us to create a job target to describe the person, not the task. What kind of person do you want? Their average tenure prior to us was maybe 4 to 6 months. I think the person we helped them find through our methods, they're going on their 3rd year with the organization. But more importantly, and I'll describe why it's different, this chef cooks for the individual 7 days a week. Prior chefs would, open up a can of fruit and put it on a plate, and it provided all the necessary nutrition. This chef brings the residents into the room and carves animals out of the fruit. You're getting the same nutrition, but the experience is completely different. More to the point, because the person was so connected to the mission of this incredible organization, when the pandemic hit, he had the best ideas for how to get them through the pandemic. Had nothing to do with being a chef, but he had incredible ideas on how to get this organization through the pandemic with the lowest risk to our residents. So that's what we do. We help you find that inside of a person, whether they're in your organization or whether you're bringing them in from the outside. We help you find that right person for your organization.
It's witchcraft.
Right. And I'm guessing that it grows, then it becomes bigger than the individuals. And that's what I hear
Always.
you saying about STN. I know I've experienced that here at Business RadioX. When you can start with a mission and a vision, you get clear around what and who you want to come and be part of it. And then as leaders and founders, we can kind of sit back and start to listen to what everybody else is saying and taking their input. Everybody, the cream rises to the top, and then the whole thing becomes so much bigger than who we are. It's
Absolutely.
witchcraft and magic. Magic might be a better word. Fantastic example. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
We are, I think, at the top of the hour. Daryl's nodding his head. Yes, we are. Again, thank you so much for coming and being willing to share your time with us here in this little humble studio. I'm very much looking forward to becoming an audience member at some point for the next season. And if we can make any introductions for you, I would love to do that. I'm very excited to get to know you guys better and want to see how we can make sure that we're helping each other grow.
Well, this has been great. We appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And we've given Monica a shout out a couple of times. We're looking forward to having her on with us. I believe she's been on with us before. I'm looking at Daryl. I can't remember if she has or not. We want to make sure that we continue to give voice and rise to all of our community leaders who are making a big impact and difference. And so thank you, because I know you've been kind of nudging her in that direction to come spend time with us.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that of all the things we spoke of relative to It Happens at STN, none of it's possible if Monica is not included. We just happen to be the two that are here today, but we came in as a team of three to create this, and she is vital to the success of this.
Very good. Well, we look forward to getting to know her better as well. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneur Center right here in Tempe, Arizona. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.